Okay, today's class will be over search and rescue and firefighter survival. With life safety as the first and most important tactical priority, rescue is the primary responsibility of any fire department. Rescue implies that the victims cannot remove themselves from danger. Firefighters must be prepared for rescue or extrication in any situation. Rescue incidents involve removing victims from fire, collapse, confined spaces, elevated areas. Firefighters must always remember the difference between a rescue and a recovery. Rescues can put firefighters at extreme risk to save a life. Too many firefighters have been killed or injured while trying to recover a dead victim. Safe and effective structural search and rescue requires knowledge of building construction, floor plans and layouts, size up and situational awareness, search safety guidelines, search procedures, thermal imagers, search marking systems, and fire behavior. Understanding building construction will help firefighters predict fire spread and development. Knowledge of building layouts from pre-incident surveys will speed a search and rescue. Size up for an incident involves answering the following: what has happened, what is happening, and what is going to happen. Firefighters must continually maintain situational awareness at all emergency incidents. Observe the structure for signs of a fire's location and size. Look for signs a building is occupied. Always identify potential escape routes. Maintain communications with other operating units. And use the senses to monitor sounds and heat. Rescuers must always consider their own safety when searching for fire victims. Unsafe search and rescue operations endanger personnel and can further endanger victims. Incident commanders must consider the hazards involved in any rescue attempt. Search safety. Firefighters must consider their own safety when conducting any search. Do not enter a building where the fire has progressed to the point where there are no survivable victims. If backdraft conditions exist, do not enter until ventilation has been done. Never freelance. Maintain radio contact with the sector supervisor. Be alert to fire conditions. Always use the personal accountability system. Have a backup and rapid intervention team available. Always look for secondary means of escape. Stay low and move cautiously. Feel doors for heat before entering. Stay to one side of a door before opening it. An inward opening door may be difficult to open if a victim has collapsed just on the other side. Maintain contact with the walls. Have charged lines available. Coordinate with ventilation teams before opening windows. Inform the sector supervisor if any areas cannot be searched. Report to the sector supervisor when the search is completed. Before conducting a search, firefighters must be sure that they know who they report to, they have all needed tools and equipment, they have operating portable radios, every SCBA has a full cylinder, pass devices are properly working, an accountability system is in place, and they understand their assignment. A thorough search should be conducted at any structure fire if it is reasonable and safe to do so. The consequences of failing to locate a victim can be devastating. Any occupants who have escaped must be questioned about the possibility of anyone else inside and where they might be. Regardless of this information, the building must still be searched to determine if there are any victims trapped. If there are no witnesses, assume any building may be occupied. Vacant buildings may contain homeless people. Commercial, educational, and industrial occupancies may be occupied 24 hours a day by shift workers, janitorial staff, or security personnel. If possible, fire attacks should be started with interior search operations to increase the safety of searchers and victims. Structural searches may be conducted to searching and removing victims, assessing fire conditions. The primary search is the first search of an area done in a quick and systematic fashion. It's conducted as soon as possible if there is a chance a structure is occupied, so it may be carried out in severe conditions. Search areas where victims are most likely. The area closest to the fire where victims are most severely threatened, on the fire floor and the floor directly above the fire. In multi-story structures, the top floor is also considered to be a severely threatened area. Search areas where victims are most likely. Areas which contain the largest number of possible victims. Areas in the remainder of the hazard zone, farthest from the fire on the same level, upper floors and floors below the fire. Interior and exterior exposures where victims may be threatened. The secondary search. A slower and more systematic search in an attempt to find any occupants not located during the primary search. It's usually conducted after fire is controlled. It should be conducted by personnel who did not do the primary search. Deals more with thoroughness than speed. Search methods. Always work in teams of 2 or more, a buddy system. Full protective clothing and SCBA are required. Take a forcible entry tool and flashlight along on search. If available, take a thermal imaging camera on the search. Some departments require the search team to take a rope or tag line along in the hazard zone. Move up and down stairs on hands and knees. When climbing stairs, proceed head first. When descending, proceed feet first. Call out from several locations while moving through the area. Stop and listen for victims when searching. People may try to hide from a fire and may be found in bathrooms, closets, under beds, or behind furniture. When entering a room, firefighters should turn right or left and follow the walls around the room. By following the same wall on the same side, firefighters will move through the entire area and eventually be led back to the entrance. If the victim is found, turn around and place the left hand on the same wall. Moving forward with a victim may take firefighters deeper into the structure or into other hazards. Search perimeter of room and work to inside. Search under and around all furniture. Probe under furniture with handle of tool. Sweep area with arm or leg. Search closets and cupboards and shower stalls. Children may attempt to hide from the fire. With small rooms, one firefighter can remain at the door while the other searches. While searching, firefighters must maintain physical and verbal contact with each other. The lead firefighter should keep the other informed of what is encountered during the search. If contact is lost, the lead should stop and wait until contact is regained. Oriented search method used to search a room. The team leader stays at a door, wall, or hose line while the other personnel spread out through the room searching. Team members stay in communication, coordinate their search, and avoid clustering in one section. For large areas, a dedicated search line system can be used during a primary search. It assists with thorough search techniques and prevents personnel from becoming disoriented and lost. The search line is typically 200 feet of 3/8-inch rope with a Kevlar sheath. After each ring, one or more knots are tied to indicate distance. After the first ring, one knot is tied to indicate the ring is 20 feet from the beginning of the line. After the second ring, two knots are tied to indicate that the ring is 40 feet from the beginning of the line. The knots are always after the ring, so they provide directional indications. Knots are away from the exit, rings are toward the exit. Prior to entry, the search line is tied to a fixed point, about 10 feet from the entrance. The first searcher picks up the rope bag and enters the search area with each team member closely behind. As they move into the building, the search line pays out behind them and everyone maintains contact with the line. Each member of the search team carries a lateral tether. Tethers are 20-foot lengths of rope with a carabiner on one end and a 3/4-inch steel ring or rope bag on the other end. If necessary to search perpendicular to the search line, a searcher snaps to the tether onto one of the steel rings on the search line and can then search laterally from the main line. Thermal imager search method. Thermal imagers allow firefighters to see sources of heat through darkness and thick smoke. It can detect heat through barriers but cannot detect a person behind furniture or behind walls. Slowly scan around a room close to the floor level and then raise to a higher level. Search beneath and behind furniture manually. Open closets and scan inside with the imager. Heat may cause the screen to white out and it will need time to readjust. Practice with an imager to know its capabilities and limitations. A thermal imager is not a substitute for proper search techniques. Searched rooms should be marked to indicate a search has been completed of the area. Latch straps placed over doorknobs also can prevent a door from locking behind rescuers. Two-part marking system Half an X is placed on a room's door with chalk or tape when the area is entered. The X is completed when the room is exited. It can help others find a lost rescue team. Other markers can be used for additional information. The search unit is noted on the left of the X, Team 1. The time of the search is noted above the X, December 1st, 2013 at 1300 hours. Hazards are noted in the right of the X, a weak floor. And victims are noted below the X, 3 dead. Firefighters must always be alert to weakened or hazardous structural conditions. They must feel the floor in front of them as they move. They must watch for stairways, elevator shafts, and holes in floors. All doors should be checked for heat before opening. Stay low and to one side when opening doors. With outward swinging doors, stay on the hinge side so the door can provide some protection. Self-evacuation. If a victim has no injuries or minor injuries, he or she may only need help to walk to safety. Shelter in place. Moving victims to a safe location within a building. It's common in hospitals, nursing homes, correctional facilities, and high-rise buildings. Shelter in place may be used when a fire is minor, it is safe to keep victims inside a structure, victims cannot be moved because of physical issues, there are not enough personnel to assist with evacuation, or the structure has a protective barrier between the victim and the hazard. Injured victims should not be moved before treatment unless there is an immediate danger. The need to exit quickly with a victim may override the need to stabilize injuries due to fire progression, hazardous materials, victim's medical condition, to gain access to other victims, and it is not possible to protect the accident scene. In an emergency, attempt to pull victims in the direction of the long axis of the body, not sideways. On the floor, pull the victim's clothing in the neck-shoulder area. If possible, put the victim on a blanket and drag the blanket. Try to have 2 or more firefighters lift or carry any adult victims. Guard against losing your balance. Remember to keep your back straight and lift with your legs. The cradle in arms lift and carry. It's for conscious children or small adults. Place one arm under the victim's arms and across the back. Place the other arm under the victim's knees. Keep the back straight. Lift the victim to about waist high. Seat, lift, and carry for 2 rescuers. Raise the victim to a sitting position. Link arms across the victim's back. Reach under the victim's knee to form a seat. Stand and lift the victim. The 2 firefighter extremities carry. Rescuer 1 kneels at the victim's head. Rescuer 2 stands between the victim's knees. Rescuer number 1 uses one hand to support the victim's head and neck with the other hand under the victim's shoulders. Rescuer number 2 grabs the victim's wrists and pulls the victim to a sitting position. Rescuer number 1 slips his or her arms under the victim's arms and around chest, grabbing victim's wrists. Rescuer number 2 turns around, kneels, and grabs just under the victim's knees. Both rescuers stand and carry victim. The chair, lift, and carry. One firefighter lifts the victim until his or her buttocks and lower back is high enough for a second firefighter to slip a chair under the victim. The victim and chair are raised to a 45-degree angle. The seated victim is lifted with one firefighter carrying the chair's legs and the other carrying the back. The incline drag. With the victim face up, kneel at the victim's head. Supporting the victim's head, lift the victim's upper body into a sitting position. Reach under the victim's arms and grasp the victim's wrists. Stand while lifting the victim. The blanket drag. Lay the victim face up. Place a blanket next to the victim and roll victim onto blanket or coat. Knee at the victim's side opposite the blanket. Extend the victim's arms above his or her head. Pull the blanket against the victim, gathering it against his or her back. Roll the victim onto the blanket. Wrap the blanket around the victim. Grab the blanket on both sides of the victim's head, raise enough to clear head and shoulders, and drag victim to safety. The clothes drag. Crouch behind the victim's head and grab the shirt or jacket around the collar and shoulder area. Lift with the legs and walk backwards, dragging the victim. The webbing drag. Place the victim on his or her back. Slide a large webbing loop under the victim's head and chest so the loop is even with the victim's armpits. Position the victim's arms outside the webbing. Pull the top of the loop over the victim's head so it is just past their head. Reach down through the large loop and under the victim's back and grab the webbing. Pull the webbing up through the loop so each loop is snugly around the victim's shoulders. Adjust hand placement on the webbing to support the victim's head. Drag the victim by pulling the webbing loop. For their own survival, firefighters must recognize and avoid hazards, escape unavoidable hazards, and rescue lost or trapped firefighters. By effectively sizing up a situation, firefighters can work to avoid hazards by watching for the signs of fire development, anticipating a fire's location, understanding building construction, selecting the best means of entry, always identifying alternative exit routes, and by doing a risk versus benefit analysis. Watching for interior conditions changing, always monitoring the air supply, following the 2-in, 2-out rule, watching how ventilation affects fire behavior, always having a plan and a backup plan. Prepare to survive a hazardous situation. Practice basic firefighting skills. Forcible entry techniques can be used in an emergency escape. Train for possible hazards. Practice air management techniques. Practice emergency exit techniques. And know your own limitations and watch for signs of fatigue. Know PPE and air supply limitations. Watch out for all crew members. Thoroughly understand all orders. Watch for environment changes. Watch for the warning signs of flashover. Emergency situations where a mayday may be needed. This is just some of them. Air emergencies. Facepiece becomes dislodged, you're out of air, an SCBA malfunction, or low pressure alarm activation with no immediate means of exit. Lost or disoriented and contact lost with other team members, hose lines or search line, or wall or entry point. Entanglement with exposed wirings, collapsed ceiling grid, or just debris. Thermal emergencies where a temperature rise exceeds PPE protection. Collapse or trapped in collapse. Communicating an emergency exits is the first step in increasing survival chances. Describe the problem and give your location. Remain in place until another firefighter arrives. If your life is in immediate danger, transmit a mayday signal, activate the pass device, and communicate the situation to the IC immediately. The acronym LUNAR symbolizes the information to be provided. It stands for your location, your unit, your name, your assignment, and the resources needed to get you out. Describe the location as clearly as possible. Stay in contact with command and advise of any changes in the situation. Immediately after transmitting a mayday, activate the pass device. When a mayday is broadcast, all radio traffic ceases and only traffic about the mayday is allowed. The Communication Center assigns a radio channel only for mayday communications. Non-essential activities cease and available units assist with searching for the victim. The Rapid Intervention Team begins operations to locate the downed firefighter. Firefighters near the downed firefighter may be able to assist with the rescue. There must not be any freelancing. Teams must stay focused on their assignments. Remaining in a structure until the low pressure alarm sounds can be dangerous in large and complex structures where there might not be enough air left to exit. Air management principles. Always know how much air is left by checking the air gauge before entering an IDLH area, when moving between areas, after heavy work, at regular intervals, when starting a new assignment. Know the point of no return, point when remaining air will last only long enough to exit a hazardous area. An individual's point of no return has to be based on how much air he or she consumes. Individual firefighters should only decide to exit a structure if they are separated from a team, if there is a catastrophic event. The decision to exit must be made by the supervisor or IC. Firefighters must never leave their team or leave a team member alone. The interior team always leaves together. If a mayday event happens, firefighters must make every effort to remain calm and decide to remain in place. It may be the only option. Breathe slowly to conserve air. Stay low where temperatures are cooler. Continue to communicate on the radio. Activate the pass device. Make noise with a tool or anything else available. Shine the flashlight overhead. Turn off the pass device for a short time and listen for sounds that may indicate the location. If a mayday event happens, firefighters must make every effort to remain calm and decide to seek a safe haven. May be done before initiating a mayday. Stay low to the floor. Use a hose line stream for protection. Close doors or barriers between you and the fire. Use tools to shore up building materials if there has been a collapse. Only as a last resort and if the air cylinder is empty. Do not remove the regulator. Use the protective hood to filter the air around the facepiece edge. Will not remove toxic gases in the smoke, and never remove the facepiece in an IDLH atmosphere. If a Mayday event happens, firefighters must make every effort to remain calm and decide to escape. Escape should be attempted if possible when imminent threat of structural collapse is present, nowhere to safely shelter in place, the air supply is exhausted, extreme fire conditions such as flashover are about to occur, an evacuation order has been given. Escape. A team should stay together to escape. If there is a chance of extreme fire conditions, withdraw with the nozzle and hose line. If a hose line can be located, try to find a set of couplings. The female coupling is toward the nozzle and the male toward the water supply. The male coupling has lugs on the shank. The female has smaller lugs on the swivel. Escape. Make every effort to remain calm and think. Control your breathing. Look for hose lines, search lines, walls, and exterior lights. Keep in contact with the walls. Stay in radio communications. Remember the level of the structure and try to retreat down to the ground floor. Crawling in smoke-filled areas is the most common method of movement. Allows personnel to feel the floor in front of them for obstacles or openings in the floor. Using a crouched or duck walk may be faster than crawling, but is more dangerous unless the floor can be seen. When searching for an exit, locate a wall and crawl along it. If a window is located, notify command of the location and ask if opening the window will worsen interior fire conditions. If a door is located between the fire and the window, it should be closed before opening the window. If on an upper story, find out if there is a ladder near the window. Open the window and straddle the windowsill and call for help. Drop articles of furnishings to draw attention. Do not remove any protective clothing or SCBA to drop for attention. If you have a rescue rope, tie it around a heavy piece of furniture or solid object before lowering yourself. This should be done only if properly trained in the escape rope's use. Breaching a wall for escape should be a last resort because it can increase the use of additional air supply. Interior walls made of sheetrock, wood, or lath and plaster are easier to breach than exterior walls. Remain low and use a forcible entry tool to make the opening. Remove enough wall coverings on both sides of the wall to make an opening between the studs. Sound the floor on the other side of the wall before going through. The SCBA may have to be adjusted to fit through the opening using the tank shift or tank dump method. If you become entangled in the wall of wiring, immediately broadcast a mayday before trying to escape. A Rapid Intervention Team, or a RIT or RIC, is composed of at least 2 firefighters fully equipped to rescue a firefighter in distress. RIT members may be assigned non-essential duties as long as those duties can be immediately abandoned. Those other duties must be relatively close to the hazard zone. RIT or RIC equipment may include some of the following. They've got some forcible entry tools, saws, flashlight, a Stokes basket, rope bags, and typically there'll be a spare SCBA or a RIT, it's called a RIT pack for a downed firefighter in case of a SCBA malfunction. Locating a downed firefighter. Rescuers should first try to establish radio contact with a downed firefighter. Rescuers should attempt to determine a downed firefighter's last location and start their search from that area. Rescuers should stop during their search and quietly listen for a pass device or calls for help. A thermal imaging camera should be used for the search if available. If rescuing a firefighter with a functioning breathing apparatus, use caution not to dislodge mask or compromise the victim's breathing. If rescuing a firefighter without a functioning SCBA, connect his or her mask to rescuer's SCBA or remove the victim as quickly as possible. Firefighters should not remove their face piece or compromise operation of their SCBA at any time to share it with a victim. Report when the downed firefighter has been located and is being removed. The need to exit a hostile environment may override the need to stabilize injuries. If the firefighter is trapped or injured, call for assistance. Attempt to control any safety threats while waiting for help. Help an uninjured firefighter to safety. All firefighters must be competent in search and rescue techniques in a fire situation. Firefighters must be thoroughly trained to perform rescue under extreme conditions. Firefighters must always consider their own safety first. Firefighter survival skills depend on recognizing and avoiding hazards, escaping unavoidable hazards, rescuing lost or trapped firefighters, effectively sizing up a situation, being thoroughly competent in basic firefighting skills, knowing their own limitations and the limitations of the PPE and air supply, being thoroughly trained and competent in Mayday procedures. On December 3, 1999, 6 Worcester, Massachusetts firefighters perished in a vacant 93-year-old cold storage building while searching for homeless people.